We were notified in last week's newspaper that Wrangell is now on a stage 1 water watch because we've had so little precipitation in the last number of weeks that the reservoir is low, and so we have to start conserving water.
This will be the last day of completely blue skies and sunshine. It's been going for about 2 weeks straight, no precipitation, and so it's supposed to kind of cloud up. Temperatures for the last couple weeks have been kind of more in the 30s during the day and in the 20s at night, and so it's supposed to warm up to kind of more in the 40s during the day and above freezing in the 30s at night, which will be nice. Here's the sunshine. Snowman. So let's go ahead and wander down to the creek that's right at the edge of our property. It's kind of weird to think that in a place that gets 80 inches on average of precipitation a year that we would have a problem with having to conserve water. But there are times of the year that it's really droughty, like we just don't get any rain for weeks and weeks. But actually the bigger problem is not that the reservoir isn't full. More often our water conservation is required because we can't treat the water quickly enough to have enough water for everybody. So our water treatment system is like a sand filtration system that's just not working as well after a lot of years. And so they're talking about replacing it with something. And so in the meantime, we end up with these water watches. Tyler and I pulled this rope along here to mark the north end of our property boundary. This was cleared earlier by the city because, you know, it's platted for a road. I don't know that it'll ever be a paved road, but they did talk about turning this into a walking trail. Looking back up to the house, you can barely see it through the trees. And I'm just turning around here on the trail, looking back at the greenhouse. You know, the only reason I thought of coming down here was because the other day Tyler said, hey, let's go on a safari. And his friend Jonathan was visiting up from Oregon. He had him doing slave labor in the machine shop. Anyway, so we all three of us traipsed down here. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I know why we're coming down here. I'm going to take a look at the creek. Because we've seen that, you know, in the summertime, even when it hasn't rained for a long time, that water is still running down here. And so it was like, oh, it'd be interesting to see if the creek is still running. It hasn't been any precipitation for a number of weeks. Obviously, nothing's melting and draining off into this creek, so it'd be interesting to see if it's still running. So that's what we did, and so then I thought I'd come down here and show you guys what it looks like. In the future, I want to pull water from this creek, but right now I just needed to set something up. So last season I just took a series of hoses and ran them from the house and just used city water. I don't need to water that often. I think I only watered the garden maybe a couple times last season, but the greenhouse needs water. Not much, you know, but it needs water kind of consistently since it's obviously never going to get any precipitation. So here we are. It's a small little spring here, but it's always running. So this is where I'd love to set up a collection system. When I had a garden out the road for a number of years, I was lucky enough that there was a creek that was up on the hill behind the property, and so we ran a pipe up there, and it gravity fed the water down to the garden, and it had really good pressure. So here in this situation, we would be pumping the water up to the garden. Anyway, I need to get this going so I don't have to rely on city water. I've got the 4 hoses piled up in the corner of the greenhouse. They've been sitting there all winter, and I thought, well, I might as well drag them out. They've been kind of under that tarp where I've been spreading out the compost to dry, so I decided to pull them out. I think I'll just leave the hose here until the snow melts, which should be pretty soon, hopefully, because it's been raining a lot, and then I'll just run it up along the road here to the house. Last year in the greenhouse, I used a light setting on the watering nozzle at the end of the hose to get at the base of the basil, but I had planted them intensively, so it was hard not to get the leaves wet. I'm hoping to put in some drip line this year.
So last season I was out hand watering the garden the few times that I had to do that, and I was just thinking to myself, damn, this really sucks. I could be doing something else. I just wish I had something to water the garden with. And so Tyler suggested, why don't you just get like a lawn sprinkler thing? And so we got this little blue thing that they had in town, but then I found it wasn't wide enough. I had to kind of move it around to get everything wet. So I went the next step up and got online and bought this other little guy here, and this gardenia thing, and you can change the width of the spray and how far it goes and everything. And so that is what I used this last season to water the garden. These bags of compost are starting to thaw out, so I'm going to cut a couple bags open and spread them out to dry, and continue to make soil for starts. There we go. Got a couple more bags of compost spread out on that tarp to dry out. And today I got one more batch of start soil mixed. So that's pretty cool.
It's been warmer and rainy, and so Mr. Snowman's head fell off, and then his body just fell off. I guess that means it's springtime soon.
I only had a short life, but it sure was